This is Alan Minsky. I am Executive Director of Progressive Democrats of America, and this is our PDA Town Hall for, oh boy, what day is it? It's the day after No King's Day in America, and it is October 19th, is that correct? 2025. And of course, every Sunday we have a PDA Town Hall, usually with a featured guest, certainly a featured subject. And today, of course, we're going to be discussing the No Kings demonstrations. We're going to hear from people about their experience with it, and we're going to talk about the significance of it. And, maybe talk a little bit about some of the ways that PDA relates to what No King signifies and the more perhaps difficult task of translating that into political power and majority for not only the Democratic Party, but a larger number of progressive Democrats across the country, so that the politics that we believe the American public embrace can actually be reflected by the political system of the United States. And of course, all of this is taking place in the context of Donald Trump's presidency, in which we feel an agenda is being pursued that, on the one hand, it still resonates with a section of the population because it is at odds with the political establishment, which has become very unpopular in the country, but it is pursuing an agenda very unpopular with the general public. And we, of course, at PDA always not only seek to understand those contradictions, but to elevate a politics that, again, are reflective of the kind of society that Americans want to live in. In other words, to have elected political representatives and a political system that is working not against, but in the interests of the general population. Certainly now we feel it is working against the interests of the population, and the political establishment in recent decades at best has been treading water, and probably slightly worse in that regard. So today we have a show which is going to be largely considering the significance and the sort of manner in which yesterday's No Kings demonstrations can be parlayed into political transformation, not only to defeat Trumpism and authoritarianism in America, but to elevate progressive politics. We'll be joined also by a fantastic progressive candidate for Congress from an area that is right now very much looked upon as a bellwether for the entire country, which is the Lehigh Valley in Pennsylvania, a very famous area of the country in terms of the development of industrialization in the United States of America, and therefore very much a signifier of the ways in which in the Northeast in the country that a lot of populations have felt abandoned by the direction of social organization and political economy over the past 4 decades. And of course, it's very much that very much the types of community on the one hand signify the and sort of underwrite the popularity of a reactionary politics such as Trumpism that is weighing itself against the political establishment, but at the same time, a population in which messages from progressive Democrats, and of course, Bernie Sanders comes to mind here, where those messages also resonate with the population because they speak directly to the types of industrial decline and economic decline that have been experienced in communities such as the Lehigh Valley. And that candidate is Mark Pinsley. And Mark is going to be joining us in a little while, though at first we're going to be talking about No King's Day. And then we're going to hear from Mark. Then we're going to open up for if people have questions for Mark, also hear your reflections on No King's Day. We're also later going to be joined by the radio host and media host, Jeff Santos. Jeff's show has sort of experienced something of a relaunch. It is now on in a number of very large markets, including both major markets or the largest markets in California, San Francisco, and Los Angeles. And I am returning to being on the show once a week. So we'll be hearing from Jeff to let everybody know how they can listen in, not only to my weekly appearance, which is Monday at 5:30 p.m. Eastern, but also how people can hear the show in general. And no, somebody asked if Jeff is a relationship to George Santos. And I should let people know too, look, at the top of this, and sometimes I'd forget to do this until later in the hour. Look, we apologize about having everyone's camera off except for myself and a featured guest such as Mark Pinsley. Perhaps you can see Mark's image there right now. And the reason everyone's camera's off is because while, I think Zoom as a company is trying to do its best to contend with its rapid rise to being used so broadly across the society. This issue of Zoom bombing has been a problem for us and for a number of progressive organizations, and this has happened to us. Consequently, the way to contain it is to keep everyone's microphone muted and everybody's video off except for the featured speakers, so as to not allow our show to be interrupted. And there was an effort at interruption as recently as 3 weeks ago, and or was that just 2 weeks ago? And of course, we really had our whole process very much disrupted because of that. So what we do is we do keep the chat on, except when we have the featured guest on. So we'll accord that respect to Mark when Mark is on. And again, on to the main subject of the day. But first, let's go to Mike Fox with our PDA to-dos. Then maybe Mike at the end of that can share his thoughts on No King's Day. Then we'll go to Donna Smith for her thoughts on that, anything else on her mind for this week, as we always hear from Donna. Donna is the, of course, the chair of the PDA Advisory Board and the former executive director herself. And then I'll introduce Mark, and we'll hear about Mark's candidacy, his reflections on No King's Day, and then we'll open up to the audience, and then we'll have we'll jump in with Jeff a little while later. So Mike Fox, you're up. I have to go get my extension cord so that I don't lose power from where I'm sitting right now. So Mike, I'm going to duck away for 1 minute and let us know what the PDA to-dos are for this week. There is so much going on with PDA right now. Mike, take it away.
Thank you so much, Alan. And to everyone, if you don't know me already, my apologies for the mask. It's a long story. No, I'm not ICE. Bottom line, it's doctor's orders. It's a long story. So actually, I'm going to show solidarity with our brothers and sisters who are helping us ensure that we don't have a Zoom bomb. I'm going to turn my camera off. Solidarity, solidarity. All right. And so to-do number one, like every week, gang, revel in the fact that you're surrounded by people who get it here. We've had a great week over the past week as far as No Kings is concerned, but invariably every week there's stuff in the news that tends to be a bit disconcerting. So this is the space for you to just literally immerse yourself here in the positive energy of being around folks who not only get it, who want to make their communities a better place and are willing to get to work to make sure that that happens. So I want to thank everyone, number one, just for being here. You literally make me a healthier person by just being here. It's that solidarity that can be some of the best medicine known. So I thank you for being here. To-do number one, revel. To-do number two, take notes. We're going to have a boatload of to-dos throughout this. I'll be tossing a link into the chat that shows a list, literally, a big old long one, of the different campaigns that we're focusing on here over the upcoming week. And please do take notes on what it is we are trying to get across from a to-do standpoint. Now, from time and treasure standpoint, the to-dos specifically right now are, from a time standpoint, phone bank, phone bank, phone bank, phone bank. Did I mention phone bank? We have elections that are going on right now as we speak. We likewise push our PDA people out to events like No Kings, etc. We connect with our people, human to human. It's the easiest phone call you'll ever make, but bottom line, it needs to be done in order for us to hit the goals from either a voter turnout or an event turnout standpoint. So please go to pdamerica.org/volunteer. There are other ways to volunteer there as well. I'm focusing on the phone bank. Phone bankers, we got a bunch of them in this room right now. Type in the chat why you phone bank and why someone else should join you. Help me recruit some new folks. We have a goal on this call of recruiting at least 20 new people. So please pile on with us. Now, that's the initial time request. We'll talk about more of them later. And as far as treasure is concerned, we take great pride at PDA in the fact that the majority of our work gets done by volunteers. And it's the way it should be. Spiritually, it should be. However, we got to keep the lights on. And we would likewise like to be able to upgrade our technology and likewise bring on board some energetic stipend organizers who can help us on the ground across the country. So help us out with that. If Alan wants to establish a specific goal on dollars, I'll let him do that. However, my primary concern is solidarity, solidarity. Toss in a dollar. Just show that you're in the game with your brothers and sisters here, okay? And we'll be back at the top of the hour for an update on where we're at on our goals. Otherwise, it looks like Alan's back. Back to you, Alan.
Mike, I'm going to come back to you in a second, talk about No Kings in a second, but
Yeah.
I'd be remiss if I didn't mention two other things at the top of the hour. First of all, I'd like to thank Randy Shannon. It's through Randy's auspices that we have our featured guest, Mark Pinsley, on today. But Randy also sent me a YouTube link that I think PDAers will really appreciate. I'm going to put in the chat. It's obviously not going to be the subject of today's town hall, and I just added it right now. And this is an analysis, and it's a pretty good analysis from the people at Midas um, about the money that was just given to Argentina by the Trump administration to as a backstop for its economy. Of course, it's an analysis of how these kind of exchanges work, its relationship to an IMF loan, the relationship between the president of Argentina and Trump, and the ways in which the success of that project in Argentina is central. Now, I only had time to watch half of it so far. It's very good. I don't know if the person speaks about the ways in which they're trying to set up a bunch of AI farms, as it were, in Patagonia as well. But all of these things are taking place. Again, this whole Steve Bannon strategy of flooding the zone, there's so much going on that the Trump administration does. Obviously, the 2025, Project 2025 people, Russell Vogt people, came in prepared to try to completely transform the relationship of the American public to the federal government through a reactionary transformation of the federal government. And they are proceeding with that. And they are also proceeding on the international stage very, very aggressively. And so, again, I'm going to place that in the chat. If people want to watch it, this is for another time. Just get the link, say the link. And it's an analysis of something that we do need to be attentive to because, and it speaks to the ways in which President Milei's project in Argentina is failing and the way that Trump's project here could fail. The second thing I'd be remiss if I didn't bring up before I go back to Mike Fox so that we refocus on No Kings is what's transpiring in Gaza today. By almost any other circumstance in world history that I'm aware of, certainly in my lifetime, the ceasefire that was just signed has basically blown apart if people aren't following it. And I encourage people to check out The Guardian. If you even go to something that's relatively as unbiased still as the news.google.com site, you'll see that this is getting almost no coverage in the American press. But if you go to The Guardian, of course, a British outlet, at the top of their headlines today, and certainly at the top of their headlines on their UK page, was what's happening in Gaza, which is that there were incredible numbers of bombs and attacks on Gaza by the Israeli, and they have cut off aid again to Gaza. So again, these are really two of the three main components of the deal. The other, of course, was the hostage exchange that's happened. One would say cynically, there you go, the hostage exchange happened, and Netanyahu is proceeding back to where things were before. Maybe there shouldn't be any surprise there. But that's what's happening. It's falling below the radar screen of the American press, and it's incredibly tragic. And it's something that, of course, we've been following and we all need to be attentive to as well. Okay, so back to No Kings, and to launch us back into No Kings, Mike, what did you do yesterday? And then we'll go to Donna.
What we did yesterday was absolutely crush St. Petersburg, Florida from a participation standpoint. We had about twice as many folks as previous. It was somewhere between 25 and 4,000. Very difficult to measure simply because it was an all street, or excuse me, an all sidewalk event. So you had, folks with signs lining the sidewalks for blocks and blocks and blocks in a region of Western St. Petersburg, Florida. And the energy was just totally positive. There was the good news in Florida, of course, we're always thinking that there may be some sort of craziness coming from the other side. They were virtually non existent. So that was a very good thing. Not that any of our people would be violent, of course. And as the news reports suggest, the only instances of threatened violence that I've seen are two MAGA supporters, one in South Carolina and one in Pennsylvania, Mark, up in Wilkes Barre, who decided to brandish a weapon. But luckily, the authorities took care of that non-violently. It was a pretty peaceful transference of the person off to jail for that. And just in general, I'm really proud of the community for showing the discipline when an awful lot of people are just really upset right now. And it's totally understandable. But we were the adults in the room yesterday. And that is so important in this process that we all recognize that escalating something in that space just doesn't help anything, and that we all need to always lead with love, promote peace, while at the same time standing up for the fact that we don't have kings in this country. And I'm proud to be a part of this. And that's all I got, Alan, unless you need
Well,
more.
one thing to do. Mike and Donna and Mark, all three of you, as we get to you, let me know if you have seen anywhere where you have heard reports of violence. There was obviously a ton of reporting from places all over the country. I don't think I heard of any violence. And in Los Angeles, let me say my 2 cents. I actually did a crazy thing yesterday. I was contacted by my old job. I used to be the national coordinator for political coverage for Pacifica Radio before I came aboard here at PDA. And right up until the time I had that role. And so the people who picked up, they contacted me and see if I wanted to file a field report from Los Angeles. Well, there was another reporter from KPFK there as well, and we teamed up and I made 2 reports on the national broadcast from the report from LA. Now, LA had the largest No Kings demonstration the last time this occurred. But LA, when this happened a few months ago, was the only city in the country which had armed National Guards in it. That hadn't happened in DC yet, or Chicago, Portland, Memphis, anywhere, only in LA. And at the time, there even were armed Marines, albeit somewhere in the background in Los Angeles. And at the very end of it, as had been happening across Los Angeles up until that point, but not so much since, there was a slight conflagration between largely some young demonstrators and the police, and tear gas canisters tossed back and forth like that. It was rather contained, but it was something that, of course, the Trump administration took advantage of. Nothing like that, as far as I know, happened in Los Angeles. I did go to the large downtown demonstration. It was roughly the same size as the one last time, I would say. But what was clear too is there were many, many more now dispersed. Oh, I don't have my camera on. Many more dispersed No Kings demonstrations across the massive Southern California sprawl. So I think even more people were participating, even though it was the largest one in the country last time. And I think probably, Chicago, New York, DC, et cetera, were of comparable size this time. Donna Smith, how was yesterday for you, and what else is on your mind?
It was incredible. And, Susan Gilbert and I teamed up last time to do a virtual event for No Kings, and expected it not to, be very large and to be pretty subdued. And what we found last time was that it was pretty powerful and moving, because we had people from all over the country, disabled people who couldn't get to a physical event, who wanted somehow to participate. So we ran the same kind of event this time. And I have to say it was equally moving, but in a different way. And first, I have to say thank you to Susan Gilbert for always being my compadre when we do these kinds of things, and helping me, and also calming me down in the few minutes before, when I wonder, why did I say I would do this? Why? Because I'm always so afraid it won't go well. And I wanted it to so badly yesterday, and it did. And thank you to Susan for your co-chairing of that. And Mike Fox dropped in, which was marvelous too. That was really good. And what we really focused on a little bit or more so was we talked about the Declaration of Independence a lot and went through the grievances, or I like to go through the grievances that were listed in the Declaration that really are pretty similar to the grievances we have right now with the Trump administration. Obviously, if you change the language and some of the specifics of them, but not paying attention to the laws, all those things they're there in the Declaration. And we heard from people from so many states. Susan and I initially thought it would be just Colorado. That was not true. We had Californians there, a couple of whom were frightened to go to their own no kings for fear, and you worry about that if somebody's frightened to go to a no kings rally because they're afraid of retaliation, but they had somewhere to go and they had somewhere to have a voice with us. So we had Californians, we had Idaho, we had Utah, we obviously had Colorado, we had Illinois, we had Rhode Island, we had Florida, Texas, a lot of Texans. We had a lot of people from Texas, which was wonderful. And we got to hear from so many people what they were thinking and feeling in this moment and to give one another hope. And we also had the Attorney General of Colorado, Phil Weiser, dropped in and said a few words. He was on his way to another one of the physical events. We had an old friend of our state representative, David Morales from Providence, Rhode Island, dropped in, and he was there at his Providence protest, and there were 30,000 people in Providence, Rhode Island. So it was really quite moving. But I think one of the things that I took away, because I don't always do as well as I need to at this, a couple of people on the call spoke at length about having those hard conversations with people in your community who are not with us, or they don't think they're with us. They've heard all the stuff that the Republicans have thrown our way about these protests and what it meant and so forth. Have the hard conversations, because we're not going to get back to working together if we don't work together. And we need to do that, not only to grow the groundswell of people saying, we're not about royalty in this country. We've made a lot of progress. We have a long way to go as a nation, but we're not throwing it all overboard and starting again. That's not the way this is going to go. So
Donna,
anyway,
can I ask a question? Because this is something
yeah,
that I know that you and I share, and so sorry to interrupt, and I really
yeah,
do when you speak, but we've spoken a lot about America. I think yesterday shows that for the progressive left, while there have been some very many outspoken voices, and there's a lot of reason behind why one can have a kind of trenchant criticism of the United States as a violent nation, imperial nation, a nation that genocide occurred here and chattel slavery occurred here, but that the balance of the population somewhere over the last century turned to where the progressives, on balance, embrace the American project. And certainly the numbers of people who embrace it rather than to have that kind of critical rejection, it would seem that they would outweigh the people with the critical rejection. I think that was apparent from yesterday's demonstration.
oh yes, I think, and that was powerful. That's a powerful balm for what ails our society right now, and also lifts people into feeling like it's okay to speak up. Not only is it okay, it's our responsibility. And then as we close the call, we kind of did what the Declaration closes. We pledged to one another our sacred trust as Americans, that we're going to do our best to turn this around, to make this whole situation better from what's going on. And we're going to allow the next generations underneath, those of us who are getting older now, to take the reins. They have some wonderful ideas, and they know technology in ways we're not going to know, many of us who are older. So in any way, I thought it was quite moving and powerful. I was so proud of my home city of Chicago for turning out that. And I loved Pritzker's comments. I thought were brilliant, that history will look at us by where we all stood in these moments. And I'm not looking for history to look back at me at this point, but I have to admit, we're probably at one of those huge historical inflection points for humanity. And it's a hard place to be. And I share your feelings about Gaza, Alan, when you mentioned it. Today, I read the Guardian article and I mentioned to my husband, I said, I said, people here sometimes don't understand how little of the reality of the news we're being told, right? So we kind of have to rely on one another to do that right now. And one of the other powers of No Kings, and I hope they keep it branded No Kings and keep it up, is that anybody who was part of any group, didn't matter, or part of no group, you didn't have to be part of anything. You just had to believe that this country was formed on a different idea than what we're seeing right now, and that you wanted it to change. So that's what I thought. I want to say a few comments about positively progressive. Alan gave me some brilliant ideas a couple of weeks ago when he and I spoke. We don't get often enough to speak. But we thought about this idea of recording more episodes and putting it out more as a series in batches. And I think it's a great idea. It can be difficult during campaigning season to get everybody who wants to be on Positively Progressive or other podcasts. Everybody wants to, and that's great. I want that. But then you play favorites by who goes first, who gets this, who gets placed. It's very difficult. So I loved Alan's idea, and Alan and I are going to talk more about it. We're going to get that developed. Positively Progressive will be back, and it will be strong and better. It'll be wonderful. And then finally, I want to close. I know I've taken too much time, and I want to
Oh, no, please.
but one of the things, these hard conversations, when I walked away from my No Kings yesterday, and I took away that I too had made a pledge to my fellow Americans, I pledged my sacred trust. Two things happened yesterday that blew me away. I ran into a family, African American Black family, in the grocery store later. And I asked them if they had gone, and they said they couldn't, they were working and so forth. And we talked about it and talked a little about things. And, I said to them, it's so wrong. What's good? They agreed with me and so forth. And I talked about the No Kings for disabled people because they had a disabled person with them. And anyway, I said, and I believe reparations are due. And
Mhm.
those people looked at me and said, you already have. And the humanity in that, I don't believe they were talking about the monetary, the damages. They were talking about the humanity of it. That by reaching out to them intentionally and with some purpose of having some kind of bond, that we somehow had bridged a gap. And then I talked to somebody later who said they didn't go because they didn't really get it. And this was the hard conversation.
Mm.
He said, I don't get it. Is it for Democrats? Is it for the progress? I hear all sorts of stuff. I don't understand. He said, because I think the person said to me, I think everybody's wrong. I think they're all not doing what's right here. And I said, you know what? I understand. And I said, you know what? This No Kings, I said, the message is only one, that we don't believe in kings here. We believe in a free constitutional republic in this country. That's what we formed, and that's what we believe in. And he said, well, yeah, but they're all dysfunctional now. None of them. I said, yeah, but that's because we have this autocrat, this dictator, this king, this would-be king, sitting at the top, issuing edicts to the entirety of one of our political parties. I said, we have someone acting as if a king. If he were not there, I said, albeit Congress would be probably pretty dysfunctional, we all know that, but we would still have perhaps the hope of a co-equally functioning branches of government. And you know what? That person said, is that? I said, that's what these are about. I said, we only mentioned Trump's name a couple times during our whole 2 hours. Because what we mentioned to one another is we don't like kings. We ran away from kings a long time ago, and we don't like it. So it was very meaningful to me to have that because I saw a mind change. So I would urge you all, when you can, when it seems like you can, and maybe those situations will present themselves at very odd times, have those hard conversations. And I'll close by saying, Thank you, Alan, for the hard work you do. Los Angeles looked like a blast yesterday. I saw somebody, Mimi Kennedy posted a video of people dancing. It was great. I thought, okay, it's going to be hard to paint those pictures as being violent, terrible people. They're dancing,
Yeah.
right? I
Yeah.
thought, oh, it was great. So thanks, Alan. And thank you, Mike. And thank you always to Susan Gilbert, man. And for Mark, your patience, sir, means you ought to be elected.
And with that, we'll introduce Mark Pinsley in a second. But no, for sure, and also the going along with, of course, and I did hear this, by the way, in a number of the interviews I saw across the press, coming back and watching press reports, including a lot of press from international press, and just people would say what Trump is saying about us as demonstrators is simply not true. We are not violent. We're not looking to hate America. We're not looking to overthrow America. And sometimes people did say that in terms of the left. And I also think that by the way, the American left, this idea that the
Alan froze. I think Alan froze. Mike, what do you say we make a decision and get our featured guest on board?
Yeah,
the American left.
wait a second. He's coming back.
There he is. You froze for a while, Alan.
Oh, must have been my internet connection. Sorry, but yes, as my internet connection is unstable. Well, okay, let's see. You can hear me now, right, Donna?
Yep, we can hear you now.
Some blip in LA here somewhere. But yeah, no, the American left, I mean, I think this is an important theoretical point that everybody should process when you hear this. I think it's a consensus among historians that the American left, certainly by the end of the 1960s or the long 1960s, had completely internalized that in no way would economic redistribution interfere with ours being a free society with free speech and an open society. So any kind of manner of like a Stalinist left in America having any kind of traction completely fell away at that point. And that's true for all of us. That's what we participate in. We absolutely want an open and free society. Any tinge of accusation that can be made that somehow we're on the same team as what in other countries in the world, and for some people who harbored those sentiments in Americans past, and only for probably a few decades in there, from the 1920s through, again, maybe the 1960s, because there were some pretty extreme formations politically coming out of the 60s from the baby boom generation. That's true. Somewhat represented in the One Battle for Another movie right now that's out right now. Might want to see with Leonardo DiCaprio. Yeah, no, that has fallen away entirely. And the left in the United States are entirely made up of people who, I mean, at a 99.999% clip, are all for the better angels of our natures. We want what's best for society, best for all of society. We want a prosperous society. We want a free society, an open society with justice, equal justice for all, and equal democratic rights for all. And so this is just absolute abject nonsense. But that you hear now, it is in every one of the Republicans' talking points that we on the left are somehow some dangerous. And I think people should just set about negating it. And if you want, if it comes into a second tier conversation, just negate it as the first talking point and say, no, this is not what the American left about at all and hasn't been. And then the second talking point is, it hasn't been for ages. Long ago, the American left, even people who were social democrats or democratic socialists, they clearly want an open and free society with equal rights for all and as much peace and prosperity as is possible. And peace is as central to that as anything. No violence, no crime. We want a totally civilized and decent society for all. With that, Mark Pinsley in the Lehigh Valley. And I have to say right off the bat, we seem to have a real affection at this hour for people running in 7th districts. PDA was I think the primary of the national progressive organizations backing Adelita Grijalva's successful run for successful run for limbo, which is where she's being held by Mike Johnson right now in again another insane move, an unprecedented move by the contemporary Republican Party of refusing to seat her. And then Afton Bain is running in a special election because Republican Mark Green resigned after, to get this precisely right, voting against Trump on a procedural vote as the big, beautiful bill went forward. He didn't, the guy didn't even vote against the bill, but because he had voted momentarily against a procedural thing that was going to move the bill forward, that was enough. He knew he was targeted. He said,
Off
this is
with your
insane.
head.
Yeah,
Off
yeah,
with your head.
exactly. Yes, right off of his head. And so he quit. And there's a special election on December 2nd, and progressive candidate Afton Bain is running in Tennessee's 7th district. That'll be December 2nd. Of course, before then, we have these elections we all know about in Virginia, in New Jersey, California Prop 50, and then the mayor's race in New York, where we have our 501c4 has endorsed Zohran Mamdani for mayor. And today we are joined from Pennsylvania 7th District in the Lehigh Valley, in the middle of the state, one of the regions of the country where the Industrial Revolution took hold. There were incredible labor battles between working people back in the late 19th century, early 20th century, a place of many great heroism among the working class in the United States, and was a deeply blue district, I imagine, for many decades in the middle of the 20th century, and is now as signature a swing area of the country as any in the country. And in Pennsylvania's 7th, Mark Pinsley, who I believe is the controller of Lehigh County currently, an elected official in one of the larger counties in this, if one of the two, I think, largest counties in the district, is running as a progressive for this seat against a Republican incumbent. And if we can actually, now we're going to disable the chat for everybody except for the staff members right now. We'll turn it back on after we're through hearing from Mark. But Mark, tell us about yourself, your campaign, the Republican incumbent, the district, and then we'll go back to No Kings plus a follow-up question. Mark
Oh,
first.
okay, sounds good. I was getting ready to start with No Kings. It was really it was a beautiful day yesterday here. Anyway, I mean, like weather-wise, it was wonderful. But anyway, so like I am the controller of Lehigh County, which most people don't know what a controller is, but it's basically if you've learned about Doge, you kind of learned about what a controller does. We're about fraud, waste, and abuse, but we hire CPAs rather than 19-year-olds, and our whole goal is to find waste, but what I think is important about the role is it gives you an opportunity really to see where the money is going and also talk about the money. So as you guys all know, the country is in chaos right now, right? We've got troops in DC, we had troops in LA, we may well have troops in Chicago and in Portland, and what I believe we need are people that are going to actually do something. And like what I've done is I've tried to use every lever of power that I have as controller. So for example, when the Dobbs decision came out, I called for us to divest $145 million out of Wells Fargo because they were donating to anti-choice candidates. And I just wanted to put it into a bank that was nonpartisan. More recently, I also sit on the pension board as controller. And so I called for us to stop investing in Tesla, which we did do. So, once again, yeah, like I mean, he's killing that brand. It's unfortunate too because like so many of my friends, bought that car, but nevertheless. Um, and then I think, more on the pragmatic side, I also did research into the healthcare that we provide to our employees. And in that particular case, what I found was like we spent about $7 million on pharmacy, and I found $3 million of it was just waste. Like we were being overcharged by our administrator. We changed administrators. We literally saved $3 million a year over the last 3 years, so now nearly $9 million. And so that's the kind of effort that I want to bring into Congress, right? Like you can follow the money often cases and figure out how to do things. Our district, as you mentioned, is a purple district, or at least it's perceived as purple. We were the home of Bethlehem Steel, right? So we do have a lot of blue collar workers. And I think that, they're still having the same problems. Like at the end of the day, I was going to mention this about No Kings. It's not just about not having a king, it's about not having this consolidation of power, right? And that's what's happening right now. So if you look at like the wealth gap is like the greatest it's been since the Great Depression. I think it's like 32% of all of the wealth is held by 1% now, right? And what I don't think people understand is that this is kind of like a monopoly game, right? So if you remember Monopoly, there's only so much money on the board and your goal is to get all of it, right?
Mhm.
And our economy is very similar, obviously more complex, but if you look at it as monopoly, we have about $22 trillion that's on the board, and people are trying to take part of it. So if you think about Jeff Bezos, I read a study that said like a few years ago he made $6 billion in interest. Well, where is that money coming from? It has to come from the other players on the board. So it's coming from us. And so a lot of what I'm doing is trying to expose how wealth inequality affects everything, including affordable housing. Do we need more houses? 100%. But what's happening is the rich are buying those houses. And so we need to put a stop to that. Otherwise, they buy them and they rent them back to us. And if we really, honestly, if we don't start taxing wealth rather than workers, your kids, your grandkids, they're not going to be okay. Like they're not going to be okay. They won't be able to afford a house. They won't be able to, to go to on vacation. They will be worse off than you and I are, without a doubt.
Um, so in the Lehigh, first of all, tell us about the incumbent right now, and assuming their incumbent is running again, and how many
Yeah.
terms has the incumbent been there?
He's only been there one term.
Right.
So we lost just last year by about 4,000 votes, so less than 1.5%. So he's a freshman. He voted for the big beautiful bill. I don't know that he's voted anything against Trump so far. And I think one of the bigger issues, because we had a Republican here 8 years ago, but he would listen to people. So you can have a town hall and you could yell at him and he took it. This guy, he had a town hall, but it was by invitation only. You know, he had a phone town hall.
Oh
Once
my,
again, controls all the questions.
oh my.
So that's who he is. Yeah.
Wow, that is such a Tocqueville turns over in his grave in France, wherever he's buried in France. And so the what did Trump win by in the district? Was it more than that last time?
It was like 4%, I think.
Okay. So
Yeah.
without Trump on the ballot, there's even reason to believe just on that margin that the Democrat could very well win this race. Right.
Absolutely, absolutely. Because our former Congresswoman Susan Wild lost just barely by less than 1.5%. But also our state senator Bob Casey, who I never thought would lose, lost just barely. So she lost in good company. It is 100% because Trump was on the ballot.
Right. And Pennsylvania isn't a state that will see an abrogation of democratic rights between now and then. There's nothing they can do from the federal government to interfere with voting in Pennsylvania right now, is there?
Correct. No, there isn't. We have a split. We have a split House and Senate. One is Democrat, one's Republican, and our governor is Democrat.
Right, right, for sure. Obviously, Shapiro, yeah. Okay, so and just so before we get to know Kings, what has your experience been with the Trump voters? How much are they drawn to supporting an economic populist politics that could draw them away from their support for MAGA? Is it grounded in cultural issues? Did they believe that Trump was going to be better for them economically? Is it motivated by anti-immigration? And how reachable? I'm sure a segment of the Trump voters must be reachable. And what's your experience with that?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think look, part of the issue is definitely economics, right?
Mhm.
Like they have been sold a bill of goods by Democrats, by Republicans, that their life is going to get better, and their life isn't getting better.
Right.
They were told if they worked hard, that they would be able to have a family and, the American dream. And it's not coming true. And so they're just looking for someone, to help them in that regard. And they went to Trump. Now, some of them, on the far right, is definitely about getting the libs, right? Like they just like they take pleasure in that for whatever reason. When you get to the more moderate people, yeah, then I do think that it's economic. Like how can we do better? And I do think once again, if you go to the moderate Republicans, they're like old-fashioned Republicans, right? Like so they're about small government. Like you understand what
Mhm.
they're about
Mhm.
versus MAGA where it changes all the time. So I do think that there's a way to reach out to them. But one of the things that I would say as well is because I've heard this a lot is, a lot of people, the Democrat side are like, well, can a progressive win against, a Republican?
Mhm.
Which just seems crazy to me. Like,
Mhm.
so here's Trump, who's far, far to the right, and the center came to him, right? Like the center could have come to our side, but they didn't. They voted him in, right? And I think the same thing is true here. I think you're far more likely to lose the left if you have like what is the center today? Like is center left like Reagan,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
Like
Mhm.
I don't know.
Mhm.
Um, and so I think that if you are farther to the left, and I don't mean like, one socialism, like that the government controls production, but I just think that we have a better shot of winning, quite honestly. I think that people are very much interested in the populist message.
Um, in a district like yours too, because one of the things that I think gets lost in the shuffle about Republican-held districts is there can't be that many very wealthy people in your district. I
No,
mean,
there aren't.
there are.
There are not.
There are not, right. Wealthy
Yeah.
people live in the rich suburbs of Philadelphia, right?
Yes.
Wealthy people live in basically in the rich suburbs of population centers or these few little pockets around the country, what Narragansett and places like that, right? And
Yep.
and not in these red districts across the country. So there really should be a draw for progressive economics in a district like yours, especially one. And what's the sensibility among the general population about the great working class struggle tradition of Lehigh Valley? Is that embraced by the general population? I mean, except maybe
Yeah,
the
I think
small group of small business
I
people or
I
something.
think it is, but I don't think people know how to deal with it, right? Like 'cause the problem with the Democratic Party at the moment, in my opinion, is
Mhm.
like rather than going out and talking to them and saying like what's going on, why are you with Trump or whatever, they make a lot of assumptions, based on polling rather than actually going and knocking on doors. Like when you knock on doors, you meet people. Like I was out in the more rural, so Lehigh County actually has a rural section to it as well. So urban,
Mhm.
suburban, and rural.
Sure.
And so I was out in the rural area and I was knocking on doors and like the doors are far apart, So I'm just like, I'm gonna knock on every single door. I don't care. You know,
Mhm. Mhm.
Republican, Democrat, whatever it is. So I'm knocking on the doors and I think, well, like, what am I gonna talk about out here? So I decided I'm gonna talk about guns, right? Because it's actually important here in Pennsylvania.
Mhm.
And when you knock on the doors and you talk to plenty of Republicans about their guns, they really were very reasonable about it. They didn't want them in schools, right? They wanted, more background checks. They want, it's like they were with us on all of these
Right,
things. Now,
right,
did they
right.
vote for me? I don't know. But like we were able to have a very reasonable conversation
Hmm.
and I could understand where they were coming from.
Mhm.
And I think that's what we need at a much bigger level at the moment.
Um, Donna Smith, you have your hand up, and of course, you're co-host here. So, Donna, what's on your mind to share with Mark?
News to you for finding some savings in the healthcare area, but I can't imagine how great it would be to have a controller's mind working on Medicare for all in Congress. I would bet you're a
Oh,
supporter, right?
oh yeah, I
And
am. Yeah.
how do you think your voice as someone who does work with waste, fraud, and abuse, because they've kind of hijacked that area now with the Elon Musk is going, that whole mess. So
Yeah.
how would you contribute to that conversation?
Yeah, so I actually did two studies on healthcare, right? So one was on the pharmacy side that I described, where I found like the pharmacy benefit manager, in this case it was ESI, was not giving us the best pricing, right? So
Mm.
like I took all of the drugs that we bought and I ran them against GoodRx. If you're familiar with GoodRx, like it's an online tool to help you get, yeah. So I ran them against GoodRx and we would have saved money had we just used GoodRx pricing. So no insurance, we would have saved money. That's number one. Number two, they're not giving you all of the rebates. And like, so what ends up happening is, as a buyer, as we buy drugs at the end of the year, we'll get a rebate back based on the purchase of drugs, which I think, by the way, should never happen, right? It does makes zero sense for that to happen. And I can tell you why it does happen. I've learned a lot, but so we shouldn't be doing that. And then the other thing was, as a controller, one of the things I did was, we had administrators. So the way it would work would be like, let's say that you went to a pharmacist, you bought your $100 drug, you paid your $10 copay, then we, Lehigh County, have to pay the remaining $90. The way we do it is we pay an administrator the $90, and then that $90 gets transferred to the pharmacy. That's sort of the process how it works. And so I went to the administrator and I said, hey, I just want to see this $90 make it to the pharmacy. I'm sorry, sir, there's secret sauce in there. We can't show that to you. What? Okay. So I go to the pharmacy that you went to. And I said, okay, I just want to make sure that you receive the $90 for this script. I'm sorry, sir, we have a non-disclosure with the administrator, right? So now I know, right? Now I know they're skimming off the top, which is what they were doing. And so, like, one of the things that I find interesting right now in this moment, because I did a whole report on Medicaid as well and how it's going to impact Lehigh County. Um, but let's assume for a moment that the Democrats are not successful and they don't get Medicaid back. I actually think we should massively push for Medicare for all, right? Because in my county alone, we have 90,000 people that are on Medicaid. 20,000 of them are mentally and intellectually disabled, right? And they're going to have trouble getting that insurance because they can't fill out the paperwork without somebody else helping them. They might be able-bodied, which means they have to get to work, but can they drive? Can they, like, there's a whole bunch of things that go on with that. So from that perspective, I think that I have a credibility to your point in being able to talk about it because I really investigated it, and there is a lot of grift.
There certainly is. Oh, wow. I want to elect this guy today. Can we do it today?
Thank you.
Let's do this though now with our time here. Jeff Santos has joined us, and let's do this. Let's go to Jeff. Then Jeff, if you can tell us about the radio show. Then we're going to come back to Mark, but we're going to go Jeff's thoughts on No King's Days, and then back to Mark's thoughts on No King's Days, and then we'll be pretty much near the top of the hour, or maybe a little past it. See, Jeff, this is not live radio. I don't have to really stick by the clock too strict. I can't go past it.
Also, that's okay, man. No worries. No worries.
Great. Let me introduce you properly in a second. But let me say that maybe we can have a Mark Pinsley, Jeff Santos meeting here too, because Jeff does a nationally available show that's done as a national show, and it's nationally syndicated, and it's available in certain pockets of the country, as Jeff's about to tell us now, including San Francisco Bay Area and Los Angeles as well. And of course it's available online. So, and I am the featured guest every Monday at 5:30 p.m. Eastern, 2:30 Pacific. And tell us about how people can get it everywhere in the country online, and then a little bit about the expansion of the show to new areas in the country.
Yeah. No, it's so great. So great to be on the other side. Usually I'm interviewing you.
There we go. Yeah.
Fantastic to join you all. Progressive Democrats are fantastic. It's such an organization, particularly with the organizational structure that Alan has put together and reaching out to people like Harvey Kane for the whole FDR, 21st Century Bill of Rights. This is something that I incorporate. I've been known as sort of the FDR liberal. I don't call myself a liberal, more of a progressive populist. So we've been doing this for a good 20 years or so, going back to 2006, based out of Boston. I was Ed Schultz's substitute host back in 2011 to 2013. So I've been in 90 markets. My show has been pretty much in, I would say, 50 maybe throughout the last decade or so. I've been on MSNBC and so forth. So, it's a little history. What we've been doing recently is trying to sort of push an agenda that merges the Bernie, FDR, labor Democrats together, including civil rights activists as well. And, having Alan as part of this. And by the way, tomorrow, you're not only going to be able to hear him live in San Bernardino, East LA on KCAA AM 1050, but at night, he's going to be replayed from last week's show on KSFO AM 810. Now, a little story behind KSFO. It's right wing, but we have negotiated with them to do 4 days a week or 3 days a week. They're giving us an extra one here. And we'll see how it goes. It's sort of a test trial.
Wow.
But 50,000 watts. And with KABC, which we're on Tuesday and Thursday nights, I should say Tuesday and Friday nights, Tuesdays at 7 and 8 o'clock, also kind of a test trial. We cover the entire state. These are massive 50,000 watt signals that go from San Diego to Sacramento and East to Riverside and San Bernardino as well. So we're covering quite a bit of the state. Like a lot of progressives and Democrats in general, we're really concerned about Prop 50. So that what it means to the other 49 states is critical. So we're focused on that. I'm going to try to get as many elected officials on from California that you know well. And of course, Alan fits into all of this. And so do PDA members. So it's really important that we push out, and we push out hard. And November 4th means a lot. We're also going to be focused a lot on what's happening in New Jersey with a tight race there for governor and so forth. So, and we're very excited about Mamdani in New York City.
Yeah, and let me just say too, for people who maybe already don't get it, first of all, Jeff's in New England, and there you have the Bobby Orr beating my St. Louis Blues and the picture
That's right.
behind you over your
And
left
the
shoulder
Patriots
there.
had to.
I'm from St. Louis, folks. So the if people don't get it already, though, in all due respect to MSNBC, with Jeff's show, you have a lot of focus on political economy and the welfare of working households and middle class households to a much, much greater degree, to a degree that's pretty much in harmony with Bernie's messaging across the country. And you look at the polling, right? And it is obviously the top thing. And when you hear, by the way, I've been in a little bit of a back and forth with Democratic leadership over the past week. I can let people know. I'm not going to say this necessarily on your show tomorrow, Jeff. I'll say it here. And the consultants are telling them they're going to run this 2026 election on affordability, that they're not going to push democracy. After yesterday, they're not going to push the democracy, that it is affordability, that is going to be just. Now, I think, of course, affordability and kitchen table issues are the main issues. But here's the damn thing. Does the moderate wing of the Democratic Party really believe that the public is going to assume that they really care for the affordability issues of their households? No, they believe Bernie Sanders cares about those things.
Right.
They do not believe, and they've lost faith in the moderate wing of the Democratic Party, the wing that continues to get corporate contributions and get paid and totally informed by high-end consultants. They're very much all about the margins. And you can see it in their messaging, even around the attacks on healthcare, because while, of course, the diminishing of people's healthcare rights are important and they should be returned to the public to what they were, don't forget the public was dissatisfied with our healthcare system in advance of this. They were dissatisfied with the economic package that Americans were receiving. So if all the moderate Democrats are doing is we're going to go back to status quo, that is not going to be alluring. What Americans want to know is a political economy that promises a return to prosperity for families. They don't have to work two jobs, 3 jobs, 4 jobs per household just to get by. They want to have the availability to control their own lives with their time. And that's the kind of political economy that you hear on Jeff Santos's show with the guests that he features. And I think it can really, really resonate with people across the country in ways that I think a lot of what's been put forward by mainstream Democrats, MSNBC, has not resonated with the public. And you can see the very poor ratings MSNBC gets compared to what I think a show like Jeff's could get over the airwaves on radio. Okay, so Jeff, what did you do yesterday? Let us know your thoughts on No Kings, and then we'll go back to Mark Pinsley and hear from him, and then we'll hear from everybody about their thoughts on No Kings Day. But what did you do today?
No, thank you so much. And by the way, I don't know if you can see the entire shirt. Let me get up a little bit. It's kicking ass for the working class. So that's exactly where I'm at. And, grew up a working class family, first to go to college, all that stuff. And so this is an important piece. Yesterday, it was around a lot of those people, not in Boston. And I've been to many rallies, celebrations, including the one in 2017 for women. But I was in smaller cities, 50,000, 20,000, that kind of thing. And what I saw was just an outpouring of love, just good vibes as a whole. And, there was one Trump supporter at one of the rallies I went to by himself with a dog with the hat on. Nobody wanted to get next to him. He's sort of like a leper. But it was fascinating. Nobody went after him, and nobody was surrounding him and calling names. He just stood by himself at the edge of the. This is an over ramp of a highway, and this is the thing we have to learn. They are the minority. They have the power right now, temporarily, but we have more people. I mean, if everybody gets to vote, if African Americans get to vote, if people of color in general, Latinos get to vote, we blow this away 70-30, which is why I come back to the whole FDR principle, because FDR won elections in landslides. We follow that principle, update it with a little bit of Bernie, a little bit of AOC, you throw in some ability to sort of communicate like a Gavin Newsom or a Mamdani eventually, we got this. And, we just have to sort of take the steps to oust this guy in 27, the dictator in chief. And I think we're in good shape. I had a great time yesterday. Fun times, great people, great signs. We'll put it up on our website. By the way, that's another place you can listen and watch us, streaming video on the keyword, thejeffsantoshow.com. Otherwise, make be connected to another guy in the Philippines. I don't want you to do that. Thejeffsantoshow.com. And it just happens to be there's a guy with my last name in Philippines. So that's why I want you to stay away, because he talks nothing about politics, just about, candy and stuff like that. Anyways, I'm looking forward to hearing from Lehigh Valley and welcome you on my show as well, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alan.
So I'm just going to jump in, I guess.
Yeah, go ahead, Mark. I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead, Mark.
You know,
I think Alan.
I didn't get to hear your experiences, so go ahead and tell me what you saw yesterday.
Yeah, no, thank you. Well, first off, I thought you were going to say like AOC, Bernie, and Pinsley. I wasn't sure where you're
Okay.
going.
Well, let's add one more.
First off, I had a great time yesterday. We ended up going to 3 different No Kings marches, and each one got bigger, and they were all massively big. I think the one thing, first off, for me, I think it's also just about community. Like I remember that like from November to January, I didn't want to watch the news, I didn't want to do anything. And then I had gone to my first like rally, and it was just good to see other people that felt the same way. Like you could count on the person to the left and the person to the right feeling the same way you do. So that was important to me. But I also want to say that I don't want to confuse the fact like it's not just Trump, right? It's this consolidation of power.
Well said.
And every monopoly becomes a monarchy, right? And so like I think it's really important, so going back to your FDR statement too, like FDR, helped with monopolies, right? And keeping them down. He had a great
Right.
antitrust organization. So did Truman. And we need to get back to that because, like if it's too big, we need to take it down, right? So do we need Facebook to own Facebook and Instagram and probably not, right? And I think was it last year in 2024, maybe 2023? I can't remember, but the rich contributed $2 billion to federal campaigns, right? That was more than all the small donors combined.
It's insane.
And so the only way for us to get our voice back is one way is to of course show each other that we're there, and the other way is that we need to fight against monopolies, the rich, all of that. But it was a great time.
Yeah, I'm back, by the way, and sorry, I obviously am having one of these days where my internet connection is a little shaky. So again, we have a local monopoly here with Spectrum on our.
Yeah, exactly.
We're at the top of the hour. So Jeff, thank you so much for joining us. I hope that, Mark Pinsley, obviously easy to find online through his campaign, and I hope you guys can hook up and maybe.
Yeah, no, please do.
Yeah, I'll definitely do that. Thanks, Jeff. Yeah.
No, thank you, Mark. Pleasure to be with you all. Again, you got a double header on my show tomorrow in 2 different cities, and of course online, thejeffsantoshow.com, also on YouTube, The Jeff Santos Show, on KSFO at night at 7 p.m. Pacific time. And again, he's live at 2:30 in the Pacific Coast time. That's 5:30 Eastern.
While some Mondays I join you for the full hours, certainly the second half of the 5 o'clock hour Eastern, 2 o'clock hour Pacific, I'll be joining Jeff every week. And that's available for everybody across the country live at jeffsantos.com. So Jeff,
The Jeff Santos Show, just to make thejeffsantoshow.com.
Oh my word! So let's get this all right, everybody. Right. And maybe is it possible to type that into the chat right now, Jeff? If you can, there it is, right there.
I can.
It's in there.
You got it right there. No, Susan Gilbert sent it to everybody. The jeffsantoshow.com. Thank you, Jeff, and good luck.
All the best.
Good luck with your New England sports teams, except for the Red Sox. Okay.
Exactly. Well, thank you, Mark, as well, and thank you, the whole team at PDA.
Thank you so much.
See you online tomorrow.
Take care. And by the way, and I want everybody to know, I dislike the Red Sox as a Cardinal fan, not as a Yankee fan. So I'm not a Yankees fan. Don't hate me.
Boo Yankees.
Yeah.
Go Seattle.
There we go. Okay, thank you. Mark
Take
Pinsley.
care.
So I missed the part about you and No Kings, but are you able to stay on a little bit? I know we have to go to Mike Fox for the top of the hour reports, but then we're going to take, if you have time. If not, we understand you might have to go.
Yeah,
But
no, I'm here. That'd be great.
oh, great. We can then have Q&A. People can share their thoughts on No Kings. And, Don and I and Mark can all just chime in as people respond. We'll go for about another 40 minutes here. And Mike Fox, we're at the PDA top of the hours to updates for everybody. And you did ask about how much treasure people should give. Let me just repeat, of course. Look, we at PDA are like every other progressive organization in the country right now. If you're planning on donating today to PDA for $10, give us 12. If it was 20, give us 25. We obviously need to have a little bit of a nest egg. We need legal support like we did need previously just to anticipate. And and there's just a whole number of things that we're involved in right now because of the political crisis, which are a little bit more cost. Well, there's a lot of cost involved in a lot of what we do. So just keep that in mind. So if you can donate a little bit more if you can. And thank you for that. And Mike Fox, give us our PDA to-dos, and I'll be back in about 3 minutes.
Cool. To-do number one, Mike Fox has to do his favorite job of the week, and that is the thank yous. The following people have donated during this call. Dr. Bell, good to see you, Dr. Bell. And Bo up in Philly, phone banker Bo double dipping. And Lisa and Joanne and Mary Elizabeth and phone banker Betsy double dipping and Becky and Michael and who starts us off every week. Thank you, Michael in Chicago, and Samuel and phone banker Michael L out of Ohio. Thank you, brother. And phone banker Beverly out of Florida, double dipping, and Michael M out in California, and Joe, Barbara, Susan, Lorna, and Susan number 2 in Arizona. Thank you, Susan. And phone banker Mary Ellen out of Chicago. And oh, look, it's phone banker Michael Link again. Triple dipping. Thank you, brother. And Edie and Dr. Deutsch who's actually up in Mark's part of the woods, as it were. And phone banking, as always. And Patricia, phone banker William, Debbie, phone banker Mary, and Neil, Dorothy, thank you for your more than kind $100. Thank you, sister. Any amount's greatly appreciated, gang. But if anybody on the call can match Dorothy, I'll match your donation of $100 or more. And Michael, again, up in Chicago, donating twice today, starting us off and keeping the ball rolling later. So thank you so much to all who have donated. Likewise, thank you to those who have volunteered. At the top of the show, I was talking about we're trying to get 20 new folks. Phone bankers, help me out. When we open the chat up again, identify yourself as a phone banker. Let folks know why you do it and ask them to come on board. If you're not seeing the links in the chat, go to pdamerica.org, hit that volunteer button, hit that donation button. Let's show solidarity with each other. The goal on this call is always, however many folks we got on the call, let's get that many yeses. We're showing solidarity today, not only with Mark and his kind of policies and with the movement in general, but most importantly, we're showing solidarity with each other. Every time you put in $1 or put in an hour, you're making somebody else who's putting in $1 or putting in an hour feel good about it. So let's make each other feel good, make something happen. Back to you, Alan.
Yes, and staff members in the background, we have a whole team working on these shows every week. Please, let's put the chat available for everybody now, and let's allow the stack to go up. And wow, see how many people we have now. Okay, look, everybody who comes on, here's what we're going to do. We're going to swing through Mark. We're going to swing through Donna. And we would love everybody to talk about what they did on No King's Day. And of course, they can also then have the secondary comment, all of it in about a minute's time. Mila, you're up first. Please unmute, Mila. Mila, please unmute. I heard you there for a second.
My
Okay.
No Kings chant was no kings, no nukes, no meltdowns. For Mark, the the nuclear power industry has been really successful in dividing the left on nuclear power. And I'd like to know your position, especially since you have 4 nuclear power plants in Pennsylvania that have been accumulating an enormous quantity of nuclear waste for the last 40 to 50 years. And I find nothing on your website and nothing on the internet that you have said about nuclear power. So do you think it's green, clean? And do you have a
Yeah, I'm not a big nuclear power fan. I do understand that some people feel that it's clean and green, especially for the footprint. But first off, it's very expensive. Secondly, so I grew up here in Pennsylvania, and so when 3 Mile Island went off, or started melting down, where I lived, which was probably 2 hours away, all of our nuclear sirens went off. And at the time, we had no idea what it was. We actually thought it was Russia, right?
Wow.
That was bombing us. So like I've never forgotten that. So I've never been a huge nuclear fan.
Thank you so much. Yeah, and can you say a little bit about what's the sentiment around clean energy, renewable energy in Lehigh Valley?
I mean, like, I think that we are very pro green energy. At least, like, I was on before I was the controller. I was on a township as commissioner, and we put out a study for actually just for trash and for something else. I can't remember. Came back massively positive, like recycling huge, getting rid of plastic bags huge. Didn't matter what whether you're a Republican or a Democrat. And so I've seen the same thing here on the energy side as well. Um, people just, I mean, there's always people that are going to be drill baby drill, but what they don't realize is like once you get below $60 a barrel, we can't afford to generate oil here in Pennsylvania. So or actually here in the United States. So one of the things that you'll see is like as the cost of oil has gone down, we've started closing oil rigs here in the United States.
Mm.
So we're actually becoming less energy independent. And as Trump is shutting down windmills and all that kind of stuff, we're going to have a big problem.
No, it almost seems like a distinctive policy where you even wonder if this guy even remotely has the best interest in the United States of America in mind. Because if
I tend to believe that anything he accuses us of, like that's where he is. So when he says we hate the United States,
yeah.
you know.
Hey, there we go. Yeah. Guillermo Nicasio, please unmute and your thoughts on No King's Day, and then again, of course, a question for Mark if you like.
Yeah, I had a question for Mark, and yeah, here in Denver, we had like about 25,000 people here, so it was great. Mark, I know the Lehigh County. I know there's probably the population is about 35% Hispanic, and I wanted to see what your outreach to the Hispanic community is and what your stance on immigration is. I know that Mickey is having some trouble in regards to the immigration issue and that people are not happy with what she's saying about it. And I'm surprised because she has a great history in the House supporting immigration, but she just seems to dodge the question. So I wanted to see how you felt about that. And also, like I said, the outreach to the Hispanic community. I saw that your website is not bilingual, which I would recommend that you do with, like I said, 40% of the folks in
Yeah, thank you.
Lehigh
That's
are Hispanic.
Quickly, just to make clear, you're talking about Mickey Sherrill, who's running for governor of New Jersey when you say Mickey.
Correct. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Sorry, go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, no. So I think it's a good question. So first off, I've always been engaged. I mean, you make a good point. I should put my site in Spanish as well. But I've always had a lot of outreach to the Hispanic community, and we have a radio station here called La Mega, which I've been on multiple times, and I've supported the community quite a bit. Even like when Puerto Rico had all of its problems, we had a massive amount of more Puerto Ricans that came in. I marched with them, I chanted with them. There's a lot of stuff that you can do. Immigration in total, like what I happen to believe that we should have more immigration judges, right? And so like if you're allowed to come in, we should let you in faster. And if you're not allowed to come in, we should not let you in faster. Um, these immigration judges, they're not necessarily really judges, right? They're administrators. They're somebody that you can hire and train. So like, I don't understand why we're not doing that. Like, I saw that they're trying to use JAG officers now to become judicial, judges. I'm not necessarily sure that I agree with that because obviously the Marines or the JAG officers report directly to Trump ultimately. So they're going to do whatever he says rather than doing what's right. Does
Up
that
next,
answer? I want to make sure I was clear in my answer.
oh, unfortunately, Guillermo, it's an answer, and thank you, Guillermo, for your question. We tend to mute the people after they ask their question, so we move the stack, and the staff would have to go back and find Guillermo. But I think it did. Um, PDA's policy is, first of all, of course, a pathway to citizenship for people who've been here, been doing jobs, been working, upstanding members of the community. What's transpired out here in Los Angeles? I mean, it is one of the most terrifying things I've ever been close to in my life. Um, uh, it's about as clearly Gestapo-esque. I don't know if that's hit Lehigh Valley.
Yeah, we have ICE agents sitting in the courtroom or in the court area, not the room itself. So yeah, I mean, like one of the things that I saw, so the court is just not too far away from where I sit, literally. And so I hear a lot of stuff that's going on. And we had a woman who had been raped, would not come in because she was afraid she would be picked up, right? So she's letting her rapist, white guy, by the way, get away with it.
Yeah, no, and obviously the status of the border in the United States, I mean, some obviously clarification and a just system needs to be established there. And we, of course, would be willing to work with progressives in cobbling out a clear, border policy going forward. But certainly
Yes.
the people who are here, and I believe that's the balance of the position where the American public is at. I mean, it has been the large waves of immigration have been because of the disruptiveness of the global economic system to communities around the world, which the United States has fully supported. But alas, I'll get off my soapbox. Dorothy Reich, you're up.
Yeah, what we really need is an amnesty like Ronald Reagan did.
Yeah.
And that would go a long way. So as far as No Kings in Topanga was very emotional for me. A lot of old friends, a lot of young people. We had strollers to walkers and every generation in between. And it was a beautiful day. It was just so shameful that we had to come together because of this. It would be wonderful if we were coming together in celebration. And it was heartbreaking, really, to see the love there and it having to be expended on this instead of something else. I really don't have a question for Mark. I would say that if you're going to translate your website, you shouldn't do it with AI. You need to get a human being to do it. We had an issue with that on our Prop 50 website.
Thank
And
you. Yeah.
I heard a derogatory mention sort of MSNBC. I would say to everybody, leave your television on all day, every day, tune to MSNBC, because if we lose MSNBC, we're done. I listened to Velshi this morning. You're not going to get anything like Velshi or Rachel Maddow or Chris Hayes anywhere else. And we need MSNBC. It's our only real nationwide, regular, whatever you want to call it, station that even comes close to our ideals.
Yeah, but you're never going to have it support Medicare for all.
It doesn't matter.
Yes, it does.
Alan, what is it? The perfect for the good or something? Whatever you want.
But that's not even perfect for good. It's just an insane.
We have to have MSNBC. If we don't have MSNBC, then where are you going to go? People are not.
I'm not in favor of it going away.
It can't go away. We need to keep supporting it.
I'm just saying there's better that there's a distinctiveness between.
It's the only major media that even comes close to supporting even Democrats.
Okay, but I would definitely say if you wanted to keep your TV on, as Dorothy says, do that. If not, I really recommend listening to Amy Goodman a lot.
Well, Amy Goodman's only on for an hour.
Okay, we love you, Dorothy. Thank you for that. Nina Singer, how is No King's Day for you?
Hold on a second. Okay, can you hear me?
We can, Nina.
Okay, it was wonderful. Oh my God, the weather was perfect. We had a big turnout, over 3,000 of us. With this time, we're on the street in front of Target from one end to the other. We only had 4 maggots who didn't disrupt anything. They're in their own little world. Everybody's driving by and honking their horns, yelling, screaming, thumbs up. We had a Ukraine flag pass by in a car and everybody cheered. It was really wonderful, despite Trump being around for the weekend. No problems. I knew they had good ones in PGA, Palm Beach Gardens, Lake Worth, Boca. Big turnouts. Everybody was the same, all races, all ages. Union people were there. Everybody was there. Unbelievable. Everybody was in good spirits. We were like, despite what's going on, everybody was in a good mood with the signs and the costumes. And it was just wonderful. It was just a great time, in solidarity with one another. And it was just absolutely phenomenal.
Beautiful. Hey, I'm going to do something a little bit uncommon here. I'm going to try to call on William Walter, who's a member of our YPDA National Steering Committee. And I saw William chime in on the chat. And William, how was No King's Day up in Wisconsin? What did you do yesterday? Were you able to head out to one or multiple of the demonstrations, or what else is up in Wisconsin? How you doing, William? Oh, William, please unmute. Hey, William. I can't hear William. Can somebody, Mark, can you hear William?
No.
But he just flashed on the screen here. William, can you unmute? If not, we'll move on. I'll try to get William unmuted. That was a little abrupt by me. Let's go to Sandy. How you doing, Sandy? Please unmute, Sandy.
I am doing great, thanks. It's been a while since I've spoken on here, so but I can tell you in Central Ohio, oh my God, I don't have any clue how many people were at these things, but I can tell you it was all around the city, suburbs surrounding it, just remarkable, really happy, of course, peaceful, because we always are. My question for Mark is, and I'll put it in the chat, if you have signed up to the We the People amendment that would basically end Citizens United Plus. So I'll put
I did.
Oh,
I
did you?
did. Yeah,
Great.
yeah. I am actually when I came out saying that I was running, my initial statement was that I would not vote for a Speaker of the House that doesn't make that a top priority of getting big money out of politics.
Yes, that's great. And the other thing I was going to suggest is, there's no reason we're losing these things, except that I would like to see us get out in front of the Democratic Party, because the corporate Dems, they're losing it for us. And just, the progressive Dems say, hey, we're the real Dems, and we are running independent. We are running people who are against for healthcare for all, against money in politics, and then all whatever else individual things have, kind of run it how Mandani's doing it in New York, like just get rid of all the chatter and say this is our things. And last thing I'm going to do is suggest, if we could, hire David Hogg to kind of do his magic and encourage people around the country to run in primaries and see who's got what it takes to run and run those people, because we see what's happening with Susan Collins in Maine. The corporate Dems, they're going to stop at nothing to get their corporate Dems in there and destroying the country. So that's my suggestion. Glad you're running, Mark. I loved your talk, and I'll sign off from there. Thanks.
Your thoughts, Mark?
Alan, oh, sorry.
Oh, William, hey.
I was going to say I had my microphone issues, but I wanted to wait until the conversation was over. So, Mark, go ahead. I'll chime in.
No, feel free, William. That's good.
Yeah, and I by the way, I spoke on that sticky issue of the relationship between moderate Democrats and Democrats at yesterday's sort of annual Massachusetts Peace Action event, which happened on No King's Day. And I followed Ayanna Pressley, and I was before Ben and Jerry, Ben, I think, from Ben and Jerry's. and spoke on that sticky issue. So, but let's go to William, then Mark, and then I'll let people know what I said about that, because while Sandy, I think there's a lot that Sandy said there. I think it's also very important that we thread a very tricky needle along in terms of our relationship with moderate Democrats, because we will need unity in the general election to defeat these Republicans. But go ahead, William.
We will need unity, Alan, but we need to recognize the leverage that we, the people, have as well. And I'll use an example from Wisconsin. We have not gotten our official Wisconsin numbers in yet, so I don't even want to guesstimate a number, but I can guesstimate on Milwaukee, where I was one of the co-hosts. We had approximately 18.5 thousand people. Our goal was 20. So we didn't quite reach the goal, but we always set our goals a little bit higher, knowing that
Did you take tickets? How do you know the difference between 18.5 and 20,000? I mean, yeah,
shoot for the stars, Alan. And even if you miss, you'll land among the moon, or you'll land on the moon, or whatever every English class poster across the country has. So turnout was fabulous. We intentionally, though, we had a number of elected officials who requested to speak at the Milwaukee event. Madison allowed elected officials to speak. Some of the other Wisconsin events did. We chose not to, because we wanted to highlight that we don't, the party itself can't be seen as the saving grace. We need to work with the party, and we need to, take over the party as a progressive force to enact the policy that we need. But without we, the people, supporting this endeavor, and without we, the people, supporting each other in our communities, none of this other work is going to matter. So it was incredibly, incredibly exciting. We had fabulous weather. The march was incredible. We did a little skit performance kind of thing built on the 5 pillars of democracy, and how each pillar sustains the American project. And then the speakers were built around whatever their specific pillar might be, like equitable justice, grassroots organizing, progressivism, healthcare, that kind of thing. And we got so many positive comments, and people were just so excited to be out there and to be amongst like-minded individuals. We had grassroots organizations from suburbs around Milwaukee that quite literally rented buses to bus themselves into the event, so that they didn't have to worry about parking, and they could show up, 50 to 75 to 100 people at a time. It was just a wonderful, wonderful experience. We were so happy for it, so happy for the coverage that we got. And we did a little bit of an org fair as well before the event started. We had 35 different organizations signed up that set up tables. We had live music. 2 very well-known Milwaukee artists volunteered to perform. So they came an hour before the rally itself started. They took the stage. They played for the audience to keep everybody engaged and involved while the org fair was going on. And then we jumped right into the rally itself. It really was wonderful. It was inspiring to see how many people are recognizing the importance of this moment. Because if we want to turn moments into movements, we need mass engagement.
Yeah, and for Mark and William too. Look, my experience yesterday. Look, they say it's a hate America thing. Yeah, there's some very pointed negative representations of Donald Trump, Stephen Miller, that whole set of goons in the administration. Sorry, I even want to cast them that way. They're horrible people who are destroying our constitutional republic. But I feel like the general sentiment was so positive because it felt so great to be amongst all the people. You no longer felt isolated. I made new friends. I saw old friends, and every conversation I had was upbeat.
Incredibly positive. It was incredibly, incredibly positive. And we wanted it to be that way. Obviously, I can only speak for Milwaukee, as that was the only event that I helped organize, but we tried to make it more of a festival feel, a celebration of democracy and the role that we, the people, all play within it. And then also discussing how these privileges might be lost if Donald Trump is allowed to continue his rampage against the Constitution. So we were out there, obviously, protesting him and his behavior, but also saying that there is so much worth celebrating in this country and so much worth protecting in this country. Quite a few of the signs that local news picked up and were showcasing would be elderly individuals holding signs saying, like, I'm a grandparent. I'm here for my granddaughter. I'm here for my grandson. Or right. One woman whose picture went viral from Milwaukee that had the I'm Aunt Tifa sign, right? Those kind of signs. People had a lot of fun flexing their creative muscles, being able to get out and say, like, I'm sick of this shit. This is a problem, but also I want to spend time with people who agree and see the world through a similar perspective.
And in LA, what was the ratio of people to signs? It at least was like 1 to 2. I mean, it seemed like every other person had some kind of sign that was not just a pre-printed sign, but a self-made sign of some self-expression. It was a beautiful example of an expressive society. William, thank you for the brilliant report, and thank you for all you're doing in Wisconsin, another bellwether state here. I think what we should do though is let's go, if you're okay with this, Mark. Donna, I noticed, put her camera on. Let's hear from Donna. Then let's hear final thoughts from Mark. We shouldn't hold Mark any longer. Then we're going to go to the whole stack. Everybody's welcome to hang out, but final thought from Donna, final thought from Mark, and then we'll also wrap up again with reminding people about Mark's candidacy too, and how to get involved in tracking and supporting that. Go ahead, Donna.
Thank you for letting me be a part of the conversation today, Alan. What I just heard from William made me want to cry. I mean, come on. That's a lot of PDA work over a lot of years of making sure that we engage with the younger generation, and more than engage, empower and uplift and mentor when needed and stand back when needed. And, to think about Milwaukee, I spent a good deal of time going up the road from Chicago up into Wisconsin to vacation and to buy butter. And, the reality is, wow, William, how cool. I mean, music and an organizational fair and people turning out, and then to hear about, Dorothy talking about the generational stuff. Wow. I'm moved again today and very, very pleased. And Mark, best of luck. I know I'll see you along the way. I'll want to get you on our podcast on Positively Progressive as well.
Oh, thank you.
You are terrific. And, any way that PDA can be helped to you, I'm sure we will be. And best of luck. And to all the rest of you who went to No Kings and did it, great. Wow. Like you said, Alan, how about it? I mean, we've needed this kind of force for a long time. It's too bad it's coming because of why it's coming. But maybe this is the beginning of us retaking this country. So thanks very much.
Thank you so much for your beautiful thoughts, Donna. Of course, thanks to William, but thank you so much, Donna. And look, I will say this though. If people might remember when Afton was on. By the way, Mark, Afton will, if Afton wins, because of the distinctiveness of her race, it would be a switch of a Republican seat to a Democrat. It would drop the majority to 219, 216. I think it would be like a by-election in a parliamentary system like they have in the UK, a bellwether parliament. I think it would be, I know this is happening on December 2nd. It seems below the radar screen, especially as Mom Donnie is grabbing all the headlines right now in advance of his expected victory, which we got to secure still. That it'll actually be a huge, huge event. And the only thing that I feel has been comparably positive has been the No Kings demonstrations. These are so important and they're beautiful expressions, but parlaying them into political power, parlaying this level of mobilization into this level of enthusiasm. And again, a big thing, this has been obviously in the fabric of this conversation, is the people's dismay with the mainstream of the Democratic Party. So how can we get that enthusiasm generated into the election? I think one way is by elevating candidates like Mark Pinsley. So Mark, your final thoughts, and then of course a re-emphasis of the details about your candidacy so people can follow and support.
Yeah, thank you. So look, at the end of the day, especially around No Kings, I never want to forget that it is the billionaires that have rigged this system, with the help of our politicians, right? And they tell us that it's our fault, it's the immigrants' fault, it's the LGBTQ community's fault, right? But they lie, right? They are the real freeloaders, are the billionaires. And so, going back to your point earlier, which was, things weren't working great previously, right? So we need not reform, but renewal, right? Like really taking a look at Medicare for all, paid family medical leave, all of these things. So it's not just small tweaks, but, larger infrastructure that we're building, and that we're not just doing it for the few, we're doing it for the many. Right? Those are the things that, and that is how I think about these things. One of the slogans that I have been using that came from another gentleman is like that we need to tax wealth, not workers, right? We really do need to focus on where the money is and make sure that they are, I don't even like term fair share. Like they need to pay a lot more, right? In order for our society to be better. Like
Right.
when you think about, Elon Musk, Elon Musk was trying to get $2 trillion out of the system, right? That's because our normal budget is $7 trillion. We only bring in 5 trillion through taxes. So there's a $2 million, gap
Mhm.
that
Mhm.
we borrow for. Well, we could just raise that additional 2 trillion,
Right.
right? Like, and that's where I'm focused. So I am very much focused on wealth inequality and how it intersects
Well,
all of the issues.
yeah, and from PDA's point of view too, there's two different channels for raising the $2 trillion gap, right? One is the wealthy not paying their fair share. And however many or few wealthy people there are, that will close that gap considerably. I mean, the offshoring of money from these people too is
Yeah,
astonishing. The other space though is, there are roughly 25 economies in the world that are close for their citizenry to be on a plane similar to the United States. I mean, the United States is probably still the wealthiest country in the world for specific reasons about the nature of American wealth, even as we decline in relationship to these other countries. By the way, China is not one of the 25 countries. We're talking about per capita household wealth. And what those countries are all of our allies from the Cold War, our closest allies that were liberal democracies. So Australia, New Zealand, Taiwan, South Korea, which became a democracy, sort of, Japan, Singapore, Western Europe, and Canada. And all those countries in the post-Cold War era have remained the most prosperous countries in the world. They all were the beneficiaries of the FDR structured post-World War II social democratic contract. And the other 5 are Gulf states, which have grown wealthy. And those are distinctive and different. So about 4 of those. So UAE, Qatar, Kuwait, and Saudi Arabia. So they're very different. We know the source of their wealth and it's distinctive. But no other economies in the world have risen up to join these other countries in terms of the level of prosperity. And only the United States, among all 24 or 25 of those countries, has a third of the population living in or near poverty.
Mm.
So if you bring 60 to 100 million Americans into the middle class, that $2 trillion tax deficit, it just evaporates. We have a surplus, and people won't even feel they're overtaxed. In fact, maybe that's so many people entering into the taxed classes, right? So the way to get there was always the way that Roosevelt was pointing us towards that, which is to lift up the population into the middle class. Now, we would, and then to tax the wealthy and the profits of corporations, which, by the way, were always structured in the taxes of corporations to incentivize reinvestment, right? You'd avoid the
I
taxes.
completely agree with you. Yeah, I mean, like it's interesting too because like as part of my stump speech, I normally say that we have a new middle class ready to be born,
Right,
right? And that new middle class is, restaurant workers, stock people,
right.
cashiers, right? All of those people could be our new middle class. We have to pay them enough, right?
I have to say too, for everybody on this call, but also to you too, Mark, I'm really happy to see a controller. We have a controller out here running for governor who is a very strong candidate and somewhat falling below the radar screen. Our California governor's race is a bit of a hot mess right now. But Betty Yee is a very strong candidate, and she is the former controller of the state of California. But also, I really appreciate, this may be tough for people to hear from me. Maybe they'll think it's contradictory, but I actually really appreciate when you have people who've held office before who are running as progressives. And I don't think that people should diminish when you have somebody who sticks to their progressive principles and they've held office in our system. That's a very, very good person and a very good person to elevate as an endorsed candidate for an organization. So we are so happy to connect with you, Mark Pinsley. We want to thank again Randy Shannon
Thank you.
for bringing you to us. And again, just provide everybody with the information, your website and everything that people can look you up, support you however they can.
Yeah, so my website is markpinsley.com. So that's Mark with a K. And then Pinsley, P as in Peter, I, N as in Nancy, S as in Sam, Ley. I get a lot of Tinsleys with a T, and that's not right.
Mark Pinsley is Pennsylvania's 7th district.
Yes.
And that's not a typo. It's not just because we're always the 7th district, but again, the 7th district, and that's Lehigh Valley. Really, really beautiful place with great history. And let's all work to make a rising progressive movement there through Mark's candidacy and beyond. So thank you so much, Mark Pinsley. Thank you for joining us.
Thank
Thank you for
you.
your time today.
Yeah,
Yep.
pleasure. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Take
Bye-bye.
care. And Mike Fox, let me go through the stack as best I can because Brent Miller, I want to call on you first because you were so responsive with the emojis. So Brent Miller's up next. Then we'll go to Heidi. Please unmute Brent if you can, and your thoughts on No King's Day and on today's town hall. Go ahead,
So
Brent.
yesterday on No King's Day, I was able to volunteer with my local protest group here in Suwannee County, Florida. In previous events, they've only had 10 to 11 people show up. They were expecting roughly 50 people yesterday, but I heard that we had 83 people sign in person. And as a young Democrat that has a background in auditing and other such things in the financial industry, I did just have a question. How can we get more young Democrats like myself involved in leadership at the local level DECs? Do we just show up to volunteer? Do we contact these organizations ourselves to volunteer?
Yes, I have an answer for you. Very important answer for you. Mike Fox said yes, but here's the key. Do it in coordination with an organization like PDA. Now, you're lucky to be in Florida where we have great infrastructure. We have Jim Langford and Mike Fox. Mike is with us today. Jim is normally with us, but not today. Are two of the really leading Democratic organizers and progressive Democratic organizers in the state. But for everybody listening and following up from Brent's question, each state is different. So there's not a universal answer as to exactly how to, but yes, contact them. But it's important as you do so to have an anchor outside organization because you can get frustrated. The sad fact, and I don't think this will surprise anyone on the call, is many Democratic parties across the country are not welcoming to people. They make it more difficult to participate. There's definitely among the people who tend to control the state, if the state party is not actually controlled by progressives, which really there's only about 5 to 7 states where that's the case right now. You'll have, and you can feel the difference between the ones where the progressives have the upper hand. For instance, Arizona has a very, very strong progressive apparatus, and the progressives are so welcoming. But in a state like Florida, where there's just momentum developing for progressives, do it in coordination with PDA, and then the PDA people will be with you as you move into it.
If I can just say one last thing, I have been showing up to my local DEC meetings as a young Democrat and as a volunteer for Florida Young Democrats, and I have been extremely surprised in how a conservative DEC, how supportive they have been of someone like myself.
Good. Yep. No, sometimes, and also look, a lot of the actual people who make up the people involved in the Democratic Party, they're looking to do better. Sometimes it's a little harsher than that. Sometimes it's like what you've experienced. So often it is like what you've experienced, and people will be welcoming. But yes, great question, Brent. And stick with us and keep us updated too.
If I can pile on there as the guy from Florida, Brent is just a burgeoning rock star here in Florida. And the key there, my brother, as always, is as Bob out in Missouri, who is the chair of his county party, I show solidarity with Alan in that, yeah, will you come up against some pushback in some spots? Yeah, but you also have the experience that Bob and Brett have had, which is you show up, you say, hey, how can I help? And you simply ask, do you have a precinct committee person in my precinct? And they say, no, we don't. You want to be one? Bam. And within a year, Bob was the chair of his county party. Show up. That's number one. But solidarity, Alan, it is best to have a crew around you that can help facilitate that process. But if you don't have that crew, just show up and say, hey, I'm here to help. And you'll be amazed at how needy they are. The challenge there being, you got to work. And come to our campaign call on Thursday, 9 o'clock Eastern, 6 o'clock Pacific, and I'll do a little bit more of a deep dive on how you, yes, you can drag your county party kicking and screaming back to its FDRS roots.
Thank you, both of you. Great comment. Now, having said that, let's try to keep the comments to a minute. Heidi, you're up, then Melissa. Thank you for your patience, Heidi.
Yes, I was wanting to ask Mark about, like, first of all, I want to say thanks to all the people that showed up here in Maine, as an Occupy and 350 person for many years that would go out in the freezing cold. I'm very heartened to see all that showed up yesterday, and we did have a lot of turnout here. But I want to say that I was at the kickoff for the launch party for Chuck Collins and Bill Gates Sr.'s book about it's taxing the estate taxes. And I want to know what we can do to get to some form of universal income and how, or some other form of taxation. And I just was hoping that we could be able to bring him on to be able to answer what we could do at a larger scale to help bring that forward.
Well, thank you. We should research that. I, for one, am not that much a huge fan of universal basic income. I think there's a real danger with the whole structure of it. If people were just getting a really, a check that could even be quite insignificant for most households, they would applaud it to such a degree. I think it's very frightening, the number of Silicon Valley oligarchs who support UBI, I think because of the logic I just outlined. Now, there's not very good UBI proposals out there. There are. So the devil's in the details with those, or substantially better. I personally am more a fan of, again, the old FDR strategy of employer of last resort. We all know there need to be more teachers. We all know there are a million jobs to be done. And again, in fact, getting money into the pockets of the working class through employment will spark greater private sector growth as well. We're not looking to have, I mean, look, there's going to be unemployment probably is not going to be the biggest crisis we're going to face at the moment, because right now the Trump administration is chasing away potentially hundreds of thousands of the hardest working people in our society. Whatever that does for wage pressure, we're going to have to work on it to make sure that it does produce higher wages for the working class. If that's the dynamic, of course, we want to end this horrific show of chasing people away. But it's a very, very dynamic, historic moment we're in that regard. But yeah, let's look into the book. And if you want to stay in touch about possibly bringing the authors on, let's just research this a little bit before we extend an invite. By the way, we do hope to have Tom Hartman on the show in the next few weeks. Tom Hartman's new book and his grounding in an economic analysis and historical economic analysis, I think, is really, really exemplary. So,
Alan, you need to tilt your camera up. You're chopping your head off.
Oh, there we go. Sorry
There
about that.
you go. Yep.
Well, Medea Benjamin entered the waiting room. Hi, Medea Benjamin. If you want to say a word or two, I'll call on you in a second. Thank you, Heidi. Over to Melissa. Melissa, what's on your mind?
First of all, thank you for having me. And I just wanted to say I was grateful for Mark and what Donna said. Quickly, we need to have a no kings attitude beyond No King's Day. That being said, how how do we help? Are we gonna get to like the are we gonna do our own know your rights cards for PDA for our Spanish speaking caregivers and for our Spanish speakers?
Well, that's a good idea.
We've got a link to those already.
Though, but I think Melissa did just specify a specific community. Is that the case with those links, Mike?
Yeah, because a lot of them are disabled too, and they're being pushed out too.
I think it's a great idea. And I know that you're in touch with Mike, of course, with the disabilities working group. So let's maybe bring that to that working group and then pursue the concept. Thank you, Melissa.
And one more thing, if I may.
Yeah.
With Adelita Grijalva not being sworn in, she is looking for financial support. Those of you who can, please donate what you can.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Melissa. And what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna incorporate some of the people who don't normally raise their hand and speak, as well as going back. So Peter Deutsch will be second on stack. Let me go to Bill Yohe, who's a new name for me in terms of people who often get on stack here. Bill, please unmute if you can.
Okay, yeah, I usually don't say much because everybody else is saying things that I agree with, and I didn't want to be a yes man. But to go right on here, being from Tucson, just mentioned some of the kings, no kings, rather people that were showing up in locations. Downtown Tucson was the main one. We called it Presidio. There was a couple thousand there easily. I don't know the exact count. And then we had Speedway, another one in Tucson. We had a couple thousand that's going across both sides of a road. A lot of people were there. I mean, it was just amazing and happy and showing signs. Then there was one I went to on River Road, which was the old farts and right across from assisted living. But they were very pretty energized, and we had over 1,000 there. And two other ones north of Tucson. There was one called Green Valley. Excuse me, that's Oro Valley. I don't like Oro Valley too much, but anyway, they had quite a few people there, and also Green Valley below Tucson. So those were quite active, and we had a lot of people just actually on the roads going by. They had their own little pop-up demonstration. So it was pretty successful, I would say. And that's the story.
Thank you so much, Bill. Thank you for the report. Dr. Deutsch, Peter Deutsch, please unmute. Peter Deutsch, please unmute.
I'm trying.
There we go.
Did you get me? Okay.
I've
tried to make the point. I've been trying to look up Jeff Santos online, and I just can't connect with any real information to find out more about him right now.
Oh.
So others may be having that problem too. That point.
Wow, I've never had trouble finding Jeff online. It's Santos, just like the former. Well, whether that was that guy's name, who knows? The guy was in the Congress.
Yes.
And Jeff is Jeff.
Well, I try to put that down, and I just get connected to this other person by his name and can't seem to find out about him.
Well, he's a long, as he said, he's a guy who used to fill in on MSNBC. There's MSNBC again, and he was a part of the Air America network set of hosts. Jeff Santos.
Will I be able to check on him tomorrow?
Well, it looks like you got to do Jeff Santos show. Apparently, there are other Jeff Santoses. That's the problem you're encountering.
Alan, if you recall, he said you have to put the Jeff Santos.
Oh, yeah, no, that's what I would say. But I mean, if you just do Google, yeah, there are apparently other well-known Jeff Santoses. I did not know that. So
the links are in the chat, Dr. Deutsch.
Yeah, Jeff Santos show in Google will get you to our Jeff Santos.
I'm looking at it
right now.
In the chat.
Okay, but I'm looking at it now, so that will work for you. Apparently, there are other famous Jeff Santoses. Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Deutsch. And now let's go over to Lois Prue. Lois is a name again I'm familiar with from the stack, so that's why I'm calling on her now. And how you doing, Lois?
Hi, I've got a bit of good news. We had a wonderful No Kings event at in my small city of Pittsfield, Massachusetts. I think we had like 3,000 people show up. I was one of the safety marshals at our event, and I got interviewed along with one of my friends by the local newspaper.
Oh, awesome. That's great. Well, please share the article if you find it with your quotes. Either today or next week in the chat, or send it along to PDA.
I'll send it along to PDA.
Thank you so much. And either info@pdamerica.org, or Alan@pdamerica.org, or Mike Fox at pdamerica.org. Thank you so much, Louis. Thank you. And Neil Penn, how you doing today, Neil?
Very well, guys. I'm echoing what other people were saying about the events. They were very festive, costumes, music, a very upbeat. The speakers in Eugene did a beautiful combination of both critiquing what the problem is and offering solutions. The local organization that put it on, we've been working since April, since the first hands-on rally, so there was continuity there. And because we didn't want it to just be a flash in the pan, afterwards we had about a dozen organizations doing tabling to do outreach. We also put together a hub website for the 24 social justice, environmental, peace-oriented groups, so that persons who came to the event, they have an easy way of finding out about activities moving forward.
Well, thank you so much. And look, a lot of people have been focused on places like Eugene and Portland because of the popularity of the concept of Antifa in these places. Was there no evidence of any scuffles with the police or black bloc activity that was uncommon, or rather, produced those kind of conflagrations?
Fortunately, the Eugene police have the ability to tell the difference between hooligans and responsible citizens.
Good.
And we have had occasionally black boxes coming back down from Portland that were trying to stir things up, and we basically made it clear to them they get to do what they want on their home turf, but they don't get to play hit and run and try to run roughshod over what the local activist community wants to do in their particular area.
Yeah, well, apparently in the light of the clear effort of the Trump administration to sort of go fishing for a conflagration in Portland, apparently Portland is the one place in the country where there is something like an organization that is called Antifa. It's called Rose City Antifa. And apparently, from what I understand in talking to our state coordinator in Oregon, that actually that group was recognized what the Trump administration was doing, and they were putting their energies into some creative costuming, and that's where their energies were going. Now, I don't know how that all played out yesterday, but since I haven't heard about anything bad going off there, I'm assuming it remained peaceful. So, Neil, thank you for the great report.
One last thing in response to what you were saying during the George Floyd protest, the administration at the time had in different communities pallets of bricks just so happened to show up in the area where the protests were, because they were trying to delegitimize it by getting young hotheads to use the bricks to have it go from legitimate protest to a mild insurrection, which is a dumbass no-win tactic.
Yeah, so not going to have much of a overthrow of the United States or an effective insurrection from center of Portland, Oregon. Hey, thank you so much, Neil. And Edie, you're up next. And we should have to keep these at a minute because we got to wrap this up and hand over to family time for Mike Fox and get going for the day. Thank you, Edie. You're up.
Hi, I went to a No Kings in a small purple town in New Jersey. There were twice as many people there as last time, but the weather was good. That helped. And we had the Solidarity singers there. if you've ever heard of them. They were
Awesome.
good.
Thank you, Edie. Thank you
The
for your
only
report.
thing I wanted to say, and I'll make it quick, is I kind of disagreed with what he said about Mikey Sherrill and the immigrants.
Oh, that was not Mark. That was someone else. That was Guillermo who said that. But
Oh, okay.
what sense do you disagree?
Because, well, she always voted in favor of helping the immigrants and from all over, that is. And first of all, I voted for somebody else in the primary, but the alternative is much, much worse.
Yeah, I imagine that's the case. Yeah, no, actually, Guillermo was to say, I think it actually said that he was just disappointed in her campaign because she had voted better as an elected. But thank you
Yeah,
for your
okay.
comment.
I
Thank you.
apologize to him for that.
No. He was being critical, and you're noting the point that given the voting record, very reasonable to assume that the alternative is going to be substantially worse. But again,
Worse,
I
yeah.
very much appreciate Guillermo's comments, very much appreciate yours. So thank you so much, Edie. Okay. Thank you. And over to Tyler, and then Mimi. Please unmute Tyler.
Yeah, my question was about Medicare for all, which was mentioned earlier in the discussion.
Sure.
Is that I thought that one of the things that would be helpful with maybe instead of nationalizing all of the hospitals is to do it like original Medicare, where you pay 75 or 80%, but you expand it for vision and hearing and stuff.
Yeah, no, for sure. In fact, I don't think nationalization of the hospitals is on the table with Medicare for all. That would be to create a system like the NHS in the UK. And the Medicare for all system is a national state-run health insurance program such that the hospital structure would not, I mean, there are variations of Medicare for all that deal with whether you have privatized hospitals or nonprofit hospitals, or rather hospitals for profit or nonprofit hospitals. But generally, the hospitals themselves would not be run by the state. They would be either independent profit or nonprofit organizations within a national health insurance system. So I hope that answers the question, Tyler.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Mimi, what's up? How you doing, Mimi? Carrie's on deck.
Hi, Alan. Hi, everyone. Thanks for organizing. We had a really great No Kings Day in San Jose, California. 10,000 people, great amount of people, 10,000 of my new friends. And as for next steps, I wanted to ask quickly, I don't know if Dorothy Reich is still on the phone, but this would be a great time to have a general strike. And I did see some posts about that the week of Thanksgiving. So I don't know what folks think. And also, I'd mentioned in chat, unfortunately, Trump has named San Francisco as the next place where they're going to send ICE. And I'm not yet strong enough yet to go up to another city like that, but I hope they're able to do all the costumes and so forth to fight them with whimsy. Fight's not how about confront them with whimsy? Thank you so much. And I hope that PDA California or PDA can help us out, because that's going to be pretty major. I mean, San Francisco's been name checked for years by Fox, etc. Thank you so much, everyone.
Oh, no, thank you for sure. And of course, they were very focused in their attacks when we had an ally as the city attorney, where they claimed crime rate was going up and the crime rate wasn't going up. It was already high in some respects, but it wasn't going up. In fact, I think it went down. So thank you for that, Mimi. And we should just move quickly, though. So everybody's just comments. Everybody gets about a minute, and then we're going to wrap here. Carrie Larson, you're up next. Thank you for your patience.
Thanks, Alan. We had our rally yesterday, and it turned out better than we thought. We had, over 100 show up, and that's in a town of like 4,000. And
where
we
at?
didn't,
Where at? What part of the country?
Oh, Charles, or I mean, New Hampton, Iowa, just north of Charles City. So it was fun. We had people speaking, and I spoke and I talked about PDA Iowa and talked about us. And it was so peaceful that there was a Trump guy that came and was sitting with one of us, and they talked. They had a civil conversation, and I thought that was cool. And then today in church, my husband's minister, and one of our church members, he came up to me and asked me how the rally went, and I said, "Yeah, it went really well. We had, blah blah." He goes, "Well, that's good." Well, he says, I lean Republican, but I don't like what's going on here." And I thought, yeah, that is so cool. And when we're talking about why bad stuff happens, how it's gotten so bad. I truly believe that in everything that in bad situations, good comes out of it. That's why God allows that. And I think God is allowing this so people wake up. And I think we should not pay our taxes coming next year, because I don't like paying for stuff for Trump to decorate the White House to his satisfaction. So
Thank you so
that's
much,
my
Carrie.
2 cents.
Thank you so much. And Heidi, yes, I received your email. So thank you very much, Heidi, for the email. And let's go to Art now. And then we're just going to have 5 people after Art, and that's it, max. So we're closed. The last person on stack is Mickey Leader. After that, no more people on stack till we go to family time. Art, what's up?
Thanks, Alan. I was in San Francisco yesterday for what was a peaceful and joyful and large gathering for No Kings, and we marched up from the Embarcadero to the Civic Center. I hung out with the Our Revolution organizer and handed out signs and T-shirts. The vibe was very upbeat and creative. My additional comment is about the idea of growing our pro-democracy movement, in which all of us who were in the streets yesterday were participants. Could PDA expand what it does here on Sundays to get more progressives involved and organize maybe a national teach-in and town hall? Kind of a larger version of what you do already.
Okay, 2 things there. The fact that this takes place on Sunday is a legacy of our COVID era updates on the COVID crisis. And we got locked into this, and we've discovered it's a very good time for us to do it. Having said that, I think my family would probably my child would divorce me if I spent more time on Sunday working on this. So I think maybe the teach-in could be on another day. I like the idea, though.
We
Art,
already have that, Alan. Thursday. Every Thursday is a teach-in.
Well, that's a campaign call, and I agree with that. It could be expanded to that, but I think Art is probably talking about something a little bit more in terms of organizing outside of the organization and drawing people in from outside the organization. So, but I don't know, Art, why don't you email me? Heidi just emailed me successfully with an idea. Toss it to me at alan@pdamerica.org. I mean, definitely expansion of, look, Progressive Democrats of America, and maybe this is a little bit of a rejoinder to the organization you just mentioned, Art. We have the right name. We really do. We have the name that the country needs right now because we're locked inside a 2-party system, and we need the Democratic Party to become a progressive party. And so our opportunity to grow right now is off the charts. And I don't think, other names that are not as specific and clear are going to probably grow as clearly or as readily as PDA has the potential to grow.
I wasn't suggesting.
Sorry, what did you say, Art?
I wasn't suggesting a different name, just expanding what you do.
No, but I mean like the organization where you were
passing. Get more allies involved in the progressive movement for strategy sessions, maybe have great speakers and inspire people, and have local Zooms where people can discuss what was presented by these speakers locally. So you expand the reach of this, what you're doing already. And, get more local Zooms, because you have up to 500 people here. You could get similar sizes of groups all over the country, sort of expanding what you already do.
Thank you. I appreciate the idea. Well, let's stay in contact about that. I like that idea. And also, you're certainly your area right now. Well, I mean, obviously, one of the things we're dealing with at PDA, we have this whole project around the rural New Deal, and the Bay Area, of course, is not. The Bay Area could use more progressive electeds at the national level, other than Roe. But yeah, and I know actually the woman across the bay is doing well and getting her sea legs in the House. But California, by the way, people should know we do not have Rose, the closest thing we have to a squad member, and I'm forgetting the name of the person who replaced Barbara Lee. I suppose she's also somewhat squad adjacent, but it's very conspicuous that California is not generating squad members. And there's sort of a reason for that, given the structure of the California Democratic Party. And we have to overcome that because I think my district, so many districts, San Francisco, et cetera, really should be putting forward great national leadership type progressives into the Congress and also at the Senate level, where we don't have particularly progressive Democratic senators. Okay, thank you for that, Art. Much to work on. Love the idea. Let's be in touch. I got to go to Barbara, and then we're going to go to Michael, and then Babette, and then Nicole, and then Mickey. Then we're out. Barbara, what's up?
Well, I wanted to comment on our No King's Day.
Yes.
I'm from Pendleton, Oregon. We were not allowed to have it on a downtown street.
Wow.
Or on the sidewalk. So we ended up doing it on a freeway overpass. And we had probably 50 people.
That's awesome.
But we can't let our guard down. There must be another before election day, we need to have another rally. And we need to elect as many Democrats as we can to the House and the Senate, so that when January comes and we get them seated, within 180 days, they can file impeachment and get him out. That's my comment.
I love the comment on the I word. Impeachment is something I've been involved in some pretty intense conversations with over the past week. All I can say is, Barbara, you and I are on the same page. Thank you so much for that. Michael Dearson, you're up. Yes.
Can y'all hear me?
Yep.
Okay, great. So I was in Pasadena yesterday, and it was the biggest crowd I've ever seen. I went to the other rallies in Pasadena. It was huge. Young people, old people, people with families. It was great. I've been involved with the Texas, California, Alaska Democratic Party. It's easy to get involved. Just show up. I ran for a precinct captain. I didn't get voted in, but that's fine. In 2016, I was a Bernie Sanders delegate. We met and we changed it from a caucus to a primary, which rocked. The military-industrial complex, one of the reasons I joined the military was for jobs. So yeah, that's the answer. We need to create more jobs and do another FDR, public works, get people working again. Everybody should get the benefits. Everybody should get housing. Everybody should get healthcare. Everybody should get paid medicine. The president of the United States works for us. He gets all those benefits. We have the money in this country. We spent $3 to $6 trillion in these wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, which we were lied into. So Jeff Santos, real quickly, I used to call to his show all the time 10 years ago. He rocks. 2 stations, Progressive Voices in Chicago, Progressive Talk. Tom Hartman's on those stations all the time. I listen to him all the time. You rock. We have a good opportunity to get people elected. Yes, on 50. Westside Democrats in California are looking for more canvassers. I'm going to do some canvassing this week. So
thank you, Michael.
That's all I got. Everybody rocks. Good job.
Thank you so much. Like the here indeed. Babette Gruneau, you're up, and then Nicole, then Mickey.
Hi. We had a very good event for the No Kings, 15,000 people in Milwaukee. The only thing that could have been better is to ask the people to actually do something, or to give them something to, go the next step. And that was, I think, lacking. Though the students who, the young people who led the march out from the rally, they were very good in showing the anti-war aspect. No war on Gaza, no war on Venezuela. And so that was very positive.
Thank you so much, Babette. Yes, no war in Venezuela. Oh boy. I talked about Argentina. Boy, do we need to hone in on no war in Venezuela. Thank you so much, Babette. Nicole, you're up.
Hi. I wanted to report about in South Florida. We had in Fort Lauderdale and Hollywood, which are just like about 20 miles from each other. We had 3 events, and we had hundreds, even thousands of people on all 3 events. And we had a fundraising with David Jolie was there for, and he had a very inspiring speech. Regarding the campaign, in Florida, I worry about the fact that, because David Jolly, he came from the Republican Party, he doesn't have that much connection with the Democratic people. So we need to, roll our sleeves and help him. And the other thing that I worry about is what happened in 2020 when the people like the age of Charlie Kirk, Turning Point, these young people, 30 to 40, they are Republican and they believe, everything Republican. Whatever the Republican does, they whatever is wrong, with the election, they believe the lies and they assign it to us, to the Democrat, trying to make it hard for them to vote. And it's going to get worse because with AI, um, we're gonna have an avalanche of cheaply done advertisement, and we have to be very prepared for it.
Thank you, Nicole. Thank you so much. Thank you for your thoughts. And Mickey Leader with the final thought for the day. Thank you, Nicole. Mickey, you're up. Please unmute, and then we're a wrap. Mickey? Mickey
Hi.
Leader. Hey, how you doing? Last 60 seconds, you get the final word.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Yeah, I can't hear you. I did something to my phone. But I wanted to mention the person who mentioned, and I didn't catch who he was, following up and, giving cards out with a PDA chapter information and, learning about their rights to vote. But I think also we need to bring Greg's what is it, Vigilantes movie information back, because I was speaking with people yesterday there that we need to combine a bunch of organizations, show the movie, maybe do it 2 or 3 times because the theater area is only 200, and combine with NAACP and other organizations, Indivisible, and have instructions on making sure your vote it will be counted, because you could be totally taken off the rolls if you're not carefully checking, and if you don't bring all the information you need to bring. The stuff that's going on is a pincer movement, and he's doing everything at rapids. It's not him, it's hundreds and hundreds of other people around the country pulling this crap all the time.
Right.
And it's something new every single day. No wonder people are so overwhelmed. We need to give them an action step and colleagues in their area to work with to continue to get their attention, so that if the vote isn't taken away because he decides to do the Insurrection Act, we need to do everything we possibly can besides tabling and calling and walking and campaigning for individual candidates. We have to protect the institution of voting.
Hear, hear. Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Mickey. And with that, we are done with our PDA Town Hall for today. I'm going to hand off to Mike Fox for family time. I want to thank Mark Pinsley, of course, who's running for the U.S. Congress in Pennsylvania's 7th District. I want to thank Jeff Santos. Of course, I want to thank all of you for your comments today. I want to thank Meg Fox, Donna Smith, the entire PDA team behind the scenes working to pull this off every week. Join us again next week, where we will have a featured guest again and another PDA Town Hall. I'm Ian Leminski. See you then. Handing off to Mike Fox for family time.